18 plus 6 plus 6. So when we're adding three numbers together, I like to start by adding the two smallest numbers together. So 6 plus 6 is 12, and then we can add the 18, because remember with addition, order doesn't matter. 2 plus 8 is 10, so 1, 0. 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 3, so our answer is 30. Now, 2,360 plus 100. Our answer is 2,460, because we start with 300s, we're adding 100, so in our answer we have 400s, and all the other digits stay the same. But if we're not sure, we could use column addition for this. 0 plus 0 is 0, 6 plus 0 is 6, 3 plus 1 is 4, 2 plus nothing is 2. 25 times 1. Well, any number times 1 is just that number, so our answer is 25. 36 divided by 4. So remember, division is the inverse of operation. So really this question is asking us what times 4 is 36. Now if you know your times tables, you might know that 9 times 4 is 36, which means that 36 divided by 4 is 9, so that's our answer. But if you don't know 36 divided by 4, what you can do is count up in 4s until you get to 36. So 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28, 32, and the ninth multiple of 4 is 36. So because we've counted up 9 numbers, our answer is 9. 547 plus 38. We can set this out as a column addition, making sure that we've got the digits lined up on the right hand side. 7 plus 8 is 15, so 1, 5. 1 plus 4 plus 3 is 8, and 5 plus nothing is 5. So our answer is 585. 435 times 0. Well, any number times 0 is 0, so that's our answer. 499 plus 5. Now we could use column method for this, so 9 plus 5 is 14, so 1, 4. 1 plus 9 is 10, so 1, 0, and 1 plus 4 is 5. So our answer is 504. But here we don't really need to use the column method. From 499, if we add 1, we get to 500, and then from 500, if we add another 4, we get our answer. And that's because if we add 1 and then add 4, that's the same as adding 5. 6 sevenths minus 2 sevenths. So here we're subtracting fractions with a common denominator, and just like when we're adding fractions, if we have a common denominator, the denominator stays the same in our answer. Then we can just subtract the numerator. So 6 minus 2 is 4, so our answer is 4 sevenths. 6 times 7. Well, if you don't know your times tables, you can count up 6 steps of 7. So you could count 7, 14, 21, 28, 35, and the 6th multiple of 7 is 42. So that's our answer to 6 times 7. 504 minus 85. So we can set this out as a column subtraction, making sure we've got the digits lined up on the right hand side, so we've got our ones, tens and hundreds columns in place. Now we can't do 4 minus 5, and here we can't exchange with the place value to the left because it's a 0, so we need to go all the way over to the 5 in our hundreds and replace one of those hundreds for 10 tens. Then we can exchange one of those tens for 10 ones, so we have 14 ones. 14 minus 5 is 9, 9 minus 8 is 1, 4 minus nothing is 4, so our answer is 419. Find 1/8 of 72. So when we're finding a fraction of a number, just like when we're multiplying a fraction by a number, we divide by the denominator, then multiply by the numerator. But here, the numerator's 1, so all we need to do is divide by the denominator. We just need to work out 72 divided by 8. That's 9, so 1/8 of 72 is 9. If we weren't sure how to divide 72 by 8, we could count up in steps of 8 until we reached 72. So we could count 8, 16, 24, 32, 40, 48, 56, 64, 72. So because we counted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 numbers, we know that 72 divided by 8 is 9, which means we know that 1/8 of 72 is 9. 36,839 plus 31,878. So we can set this out as a column addition. 9 plus 8 is 17, so 1, 7. 1 plus 3 plus 7 is 11, so 1, 1. 1 plus 8 plus 8 is 17, so 1, 7. 1 plus 6 plus 1 is 8, and 3 plus 3 is 6. So our answer is 68,717. 9 times 4 times 2. Now with multiplication, just like with addition, order doesn't matter. So what I like to do is multiply the smaller numbers together first. So 4 times 2 is 8. Then we can take our answer, so take that 8 and multiply it by the other digit in our question, the other number in our question. So we have 8 times 9. That's 72. And if you're not sure how to work out 8 times 9, you can count 8 steps of 9. So 9, 18, 27, 36, 45, 54, 63, and the 8th multiple of 9 is 72. And writing out your 9 times table, you'll notice the pattern that it makes. Now you could also start with 9 times 4. So you might start by working out 9 times 4, which is 36, and then multiplying 36 by 2. 6 times 2 is 12. For our second answer line, we need a 0 in our ones, and 3 times 2 is 6. Then, when you add up your answer lines, you get the same answer. Or you could use short multiplication. 6 times 2 is 12, so 1, 2. 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 is 7. So here we have 9 and a little 2, and we read this as 9 squared. Now this 2 means multiply the number by itself. So 9 squared means 9 times 9. That's 81. So 9 squared is 81. And if you're not sure what 9 times 9 is, again, you could write out your 9 times table, and the 9th multiple of 9 is 81. Now 762 divided by 6. So if we take the first digit, we have 7 divided by 6. Now the closest you can get to 7 is just 6. And that's 1 times 6, so 1 goes in our answer line. Then we subtract and bring down. So we have 16 divided by 6. If you count in sixes, you have 6, 12, and then 18. But 18 is too many, so we need to stop at 12. And because that's 2 times 6, 2 goes in our answer line. Now we subtract 16 minus 12, and we bring down the last digit. So we have 42 divided by 6. Now that's exactly 7 times 6, and to show that we don't have a remainder, we can write minus 42 and 0. We could also use short division here. So 7 divided by 6 is 1 remainder 1. That's because 1 times 6 is 6, and then we need to add 1 to get 7. Now 16 divided by 6 is 2 remainder 4, and that's because 2 times 6 is 12, but then we need to add 4 to get to 16. And finally 42 divided by 6 is exactly 7. So 762 divided by 6 is 127. Now here we have decimal subtraction, and when we're subtracting decimals, just like when we're adding decimals, the most important thing is that we write out the question with the decimal points lined up. Then we can just copy down the decimal point into our answer and subtract as we normally would. So 4 minus 1 is 3, 7 minus 5 is 2, and 1 minus nothing is 1. So our answer is 12.3. Now 33,321 minus 23,406. So we can write this out as a column subtraction. We can't do 1 minus 6, so we go to the left, 1 less, 1 in front. 11 minus 6 is 5. 1 minus 0 is 1. We can't do 3 minus 4, so we go to the left, 1 less, 1 in front. 13 minus 4 is 9. We can't do 2 minus 3, so we go to the left, 1 less, 1 in front. 12 minus 3 is 9, and 2 minus 2 is 0. So our answer is 9,915. Now 80.08 divided by 10. Now when we're multiplying or dividing decimals by 10, 100 or 1,000, first of all we write out the number, then we copy down the decimal point. Now here we're dividing, which means the number is going to get smaller, so the digits are going to move to the right. And we're dividing by 10, which has 1 0, so the digits are moving 1 square to the right. So if we copy down this 8, 1 square to the right, do the same with this 0, and with this 0, and with this 8, we have our answer, which is 8.008. 0.9 is what as a percentage? Well, remember The first digit after the decimal point is the tenths. So this 0.9 stands for 9/10. But a percentage is always out of 100 or over 100. So we need to work out 9/10 is how many hundredths. Now to find equivalent fractions, we always use multiplication or division. But here we can see that 10 times 10 is 100, and what we do to the denominator, we need to do to the numerator as well. So 9 times 10 is 90, so 0.9 is 90 over 100, which means that it's 90%. And really important, it's not 90 over 100%, because the percent sign already tells you over 100. So here we just need to write 90. Now 3,104 times 8. So we can set this out as a column multiplication. 4 times 8 is 32. Then before we answer the next digit, we need to write a 0 in the ones column of our next answer line before we do 0 times 8, which is 0. Now this 1 is in our hundreds, which means we need zeros in our ones and tens, and 1 times 8 is 8. Now this 3, it's in our thousands, so we need zeros in our hundreds, tens and ones before we do 3 times 8, which is 24. Then we can just add up our answer lines to get our answer. Or we could use short multiplication here. So 4 times 8 is 32, so 3, 2. 0 times 8 is 0, plus 3 is 3. 1 times 8 is 8. And 3 times 8 is 24. So our answer is 24,832. Now 28.8 times 1,000. So we have a decimal, which means that we can write out the decimal, and we're multiplying by 1,000, so we can copy down the decimal point. We're multiplying, which means the number will get bigger, so the digits will move to the left. And in 1,000 we have 3 end zeros, which means that the digits are moving 3 squares to the left. So if we copy down this 2, 1, 2, 3 squares to the left, do the same with this 8, and with this 8, we now have empty squares before the decimal point. And if we have empty squares, it's really important that we write in zeros. So now that we have the decimal point at the end of our number, we know that we have a whole number, which means our answer is 28,800. And you can estimate this. If you ignore what comes after the decimal point, you might know that 28 times 1,000 is 28,000. So if we have 28 point something, it's going to be just over 28,000. Now 30 times 200. Our answer is 6,000. And that's because 3 times 2 is 6. But then when we're multiplying multiples of 10 or 100, we just count up the zeros. So here in our question, altogether we have 1, 2, 3 end zeros, which means we need 1, 2, 3 end zeros in our answer. So we multiply the non-zero digits and then count up the zeros. So our answer is 6,000. 2.126 times 7. We can set this out as a column multiplication, and we have 4 digits here, so we'll need 4 answer lines. Now, because we have a decimal point in our question, we need to copy down the decimal point into our answer. So now we can just multiply as normal. 6 times 7 is 42. Now for our second answer line, we need to remember our 0, and 2 times 7 is 14. For our third answer line, we need 2 zeros, and 1 times 7 is 7. And for our fourth answer line, we need 3 zeros, and 2 times 7 is 14. So we can add up our answer lines to get our answer. We could also use short multiplication, but again, because we have a decimal point in the question, we need to copy the decimal point down into our answer. So in the question, we have 3 digits after the decimal point, so we need 3 digits after the decimal point in our answer. 6 times 7 is 42, so 4, 2. 2 times 7 is 14, plus the 4 on top. 14 plus 4 is 18, so 1, 8. 1 times 7 is 7, plus the 1 on top is 8. And 2 times 7 is 14. So our answer is 14.882. Now 0.1 is how many hundredths? Well, the first digit after the decimal point tells us how many tenths we have. So here we have 1/10. But we need to find out an equivalent fraction with a denominator of 100. And to find equivalent fractions, we always divide or multiply. So 10 times 10 is 100, and what we do to the denominator, we need to do to the numerator. So 1 times 10 is 10, which means that 0.1 or 1/10 is equivalent to 10 hundredths. 47 times 81. So we start by multiplying our ones digits, and 7 times 1 is 7. Now we multiply the 4 by 1, and 4 times 1 is 4. So now we've multiplied the 7 and the 4 by 1, so we need to move on to this 8. But because the 8 is in our tens, we need a 0 in the ones of our second answer line. So we have 7 times 8. If you're not sure, count in 8s 7 times, and 7 times 8 is 56. Now because we're multiplying 2 digits by 2 digits, we need to write 56 as 5 6. So finally we can multiply 4 by 8. 4 times 8 is 32, but then we need to add the 5 that's on top. So we need 32 plus 5, which is 37. So 4 times 8 plus 5 is 37. So now we can add up our answer lines. 7 plus 0 is 7. 4 plus 6 is 10, so 1, 0. 1 plus 7 is 8, and nothing plus 3 is 3. So our answer is 3,807. Find 5/7 of 105. So to find a fraction of a number, we divide denominator, then times top. So we need to start with 105 divided by 7. So if we write out the division, there's no point doing 1 divided by 7 because 1 is less than 7. So let's take the first 2 digits together and do 10 divided by 7. Well, the 7 times table goes 7, 14, but 14 would be too many. So we need to stop at 7, and because 7 is 1 times 7, we need to write 1 in our answer line. Now, remember we subtract and bring down. 10 minus 7 is 3, and we can bring down the 5, so we have 35 divided by 7. 35 divided by 7 is exactly 5, because 5 times 7 is 35. And to show that we don't have a remainder, we can write minus 35 and 0. We could also use short division here. Taking the first 2 digits together, 10 divided by 7 is 1 remainder 3. That's because 1 times 7 is 7, and then we need to add 3 to get to 10. Now 35 divided by 7 is exactly 5. But we haven't got the answer yet. We know that 105 divided by 7 is 15, but notice that the top of our fraction isn't 1. We have 5 as the numerator of our fraction, which means we need to multiply this 15 by 5. Again, we can use column method here. So 5 times 5 is 25. We need a 0 in our second answer line, and 1 times 5 is 5. So we add up our answer lines to get 75. Or we could use short multiplication. 5 times 5 is 25, so 2, 5. And then 1 times 5 is 5, plus the 2 on top is 7. So 15 times 5 is 75, which means that 5/7 of 105 is 75. 6.1 plus 2.35. So we're adding decimals, and the main thing to remember when we add decimals is to line up the decimal points. So I like to write the decimal point first and then write the number, because that way you know that you've got your decimal points lined up. We can write 0 in empty squares, and so that we don't forget, let's copy down the decimal point into our answer straight away. Now 0 plus 5 is 5, 1 plus 3 is 4, and 6 plus 2 is 8. So our answer is 8.45. Now 5/6 plus 1/12. So we're adding fractions, but the problem here is that our denominators are not the same. And to be able to add or subtract fractions, we need the denominators to be the same. So, because 12 is in the 6 times table, we can find an equivalent fraction to 5/6, which has a denominator of 12. Remember, when we find equivalent fractions, we're multiplying, and 6 times 2 is 12. And what you do to the denominator, you need to do to the numerator as well. 5 times 2 is 10, so 5/6 is equivalent to 10/12. So we can rewrite our question. Instead of writing 5/6 plus 1/12, we can write 10/12 plus 1/12. So now we have our denominators the same, which means that we can keep the denominator the same in our answer and just add the numerators. 10 plus 1 is 11, so our answer is 11/12. 2 3/4 times 2. Now the way I like to multiply a mixed number by a whole number is to first multiply the whole number part of the mixed number, then multiply the fraction, then add up the answers. So we can have 2 times 2, which is 4, then we can work out 3/4 times 2 and add up our answers. Now when we're multiplying a fraction by a whole number, it's really important to remember that we only multiply the numerator and the denominator stays the same. So 3 times 2 is 6 and the denominator stays 4. But we can't write 4 and 6/4 as our answer because you can't have an improper fraction in a mixed number. You can't have a fraction where the denominator is larger than the numerator. So we need to change 6/4 into a mixed number. Remember, a fraction is really just a division, and 6 divided by 4 is 1, remainder 2. So if we keep the denominators the same, 1, the remainder is the numerator, and the denominator stays the same. So 6/4 is the same as 1 and 2/4. So now we can add up our answers. 4 plus 1 and 2/4 is 5 and 2/4, which you could simplify to 5 1/2. Now there is another way to multiply a mixed number by a whole number, and that's to turn the mixed number into an improper fraction. In an improper fraction, the denominator stays the same, but we can multiply the whole number by the denominator and then add the numerator. So 2 times 4 is 8, 8 plus 3 is 11, so 2 and 3/4 is equivalent to 11/4. We're multiplying by 2, and so that we don't forget that we only multiply the numerator, we can write 2 as 2 over 1, if that makes it easier. Then 11 times 2 is 22, 4 times 1 is 4, so we have 22/4. Now if you turn that back into a mixed number, 22 divided by 4 is 5 remainder 2. So 22/4 is the same as 5 and 2/4.